Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kevin Spacey. All right, welcome. Welcome to France. Please join.
Hello, everyone.
There we
Hello,
go.
good morning. How are you, Ted?
Very good, very good. Welcome.
Thank you.
So this season 4 premieres on Netflix in France for the first time. How's it feel to be here and to celebrate it?
Well, every time I've come to France since we launched House of Cards, I have to say the French people have embraced the show and the character. I have not been able to walk down the street or go into a restaurant without people either coming up and being incredibly friendly and very kind, or being slightly afraid and staying away from me.
How do you, in the whole breadth of your work, where does Francis Underwood live for you?
Well, the challenge of taking on a character that has so much complexity. I was really blessed when we began to have had the idea and the notion of taking on this role with David Fincher and then Bo Willimon, who was our showrunner. And these two men who are so creative and so challenging and so precise in the way in which they work with actors and in terms of the precision of the writing, that I have to say I think Francis is probably one of the most remarkable characters I've ever been able to play. And the great fun for me is that with each season I learn new things about this man, and obviously all the relationships that he has, but also the relationship that he has with the audience, which is incredible fun. And I think that I'm enormously grateful for the experiences I had before taking on Francis. I had the chance to play Richard III with, to some degree, the character of Francis Urquhart in the original British series, and then Underwood, which we named him in the American series so that we could retain the initials FU. I got to do Richard III with Sam Mendes before we started production. And I also think that the work that I was able to do at the Old Vic in the 10 years before we started, the sort of 9 seasons I was there before we started, was also really important in helping me grow as an actor, and I feel like all of that work helped me prepare to tackle such a complex man.
So your performance and your ability to create it on the heels of Richard III kind of rooted it more in Shakespeare in a way that made it not feel as American, made it feel much more global.
Yeah, definitely global, and I think, you know, while there are many people who probably believe that direct address was invented by Ferris Bueller, it was actually invented by Shakespeare. And he created it in Richard III, which is different from in Shakespeare the monologue or the prologue, where a character might speak to the whole audience. Direct address is literally looking at individual members of the audience. And having had that experience of taking Richard III around the world and being able to look into the eyes of audiences everywhere, in Asia, in Turkey, in London, in New York, in San Francisco. And it was a really remarkable experience to see how much audiences dig being in on the know. You know, there's a kind of complicity that I think even now our audiences in House of Cards really enjoy, the sense that they're in on the private thoughts of this man, Francis Underwood. Of course, they, you know, as things happen and things unveil themselves, they might get a little scared that they've been supporting this guy, but that's the sort of wonderful moral ambiguity of what the audience goes through as well as the characters.
Are you ever surprised from country to country how people perceive Francis and how they talk to you about Francis?
Yes, because I mean, I suppose it's interesting simply because the show has been so successful in so many countries, it seems to translate borders. And I don't think it's only because people are fascinated with American politics, but because the politics of life are all over the world and all over the globe. So it's been very interesting to see how people identify with these characters so much, regardless of where they're from.
And on top of having this great kind of gift of having a great character, but you've also got to make a lot of television history with this show. Launching all of them at once, the 26 episode order, the first television show to win a Primetime Emmy, having never aired on television. What gave you the courage to jump into something like that?
Well, I mean, it starts obviously with the show, with David Fincher, with Beau Willimon, and you know, you well remember when we had the idea, we went and we pitched the idea of the program to all of the networks. And every network thought it was a really interesting idea, and every network was really engaged and kind of wanted to do it with us, but every network insisted that we do a pilot, except one. And Ted, you know, they did their remarkable analytics and had a sense, I think, that audiences would dig something that was a political drama with Fincher and myself involved, and you guys turned to us and said, no, we don't need you to do a pilot. How many do you want to do? And we were like, 2 seasons?
It's the worst negotiation of all time.
Well, actually, you know, part of what made it exciting for us was that Netflix was so willing to be courageous and step forward. It absolutely made sense to me that one of the major companies that had done very well as a portal for content, and Netflix had done extremely well, was eventually going to get into the game of saying, well, if we want to compete, we're going to have to start doing original content. So it didn't surprise me that a company stepped forward. What surprised me was that a company stepped forward with such courage and such a big commitment, and went forward with an idea and believed in it and gave us as creators a really long runway to be able to tell the complex story we wanted to tell.
How much of the success of the show you think is tied to the length of the commitment and the infrastructure that goes with that? And
I think a lot of it, I mean, I think that it's an exciting thing to be able to say that we have partners who trust the creative vision that we had, who were willing to take the long view rather than the short view. And through the process of discovering that audiences love being in control, and you know, as you well remember, there were many discussions about how should we release it, should we do this many, and then this many, and this many, and ultimately the notion that you could drop the entire season at once. That the water cooler moment for audiences has expanded and changed. It's no longer necessarily in the office anymore, it's online. And luckily we live in a pretty non-spoiler generation, so that's been pretty cool to see how people have understood. You know, I can't talk about any of the specifics in the show, and people get frustrated by that, but I say I can't be the spoiler in chief. Because there are people who are just now, this year, discovering season 1.
yeah.
Particularly in countries where Netflix is now going to finally be, and we have to sort of recognize that everyone will catch up to the show when they want to and when they can. But it's a kind of exciting thing that it's there and that people can always see it.
It kind of started its own etiquette when you could talk about things, how you could talk about things. And you told a great story about China and how your reaction with fans in China.
Yes, the show is very huge. I did a film in China a couple of years ago, and I could walk down the street in Guangzhou with my friend Daniel Wu, who was the star of this film I did, this fully financed Chinese film. And being with him in China is like being with Tom Cruise. And he's a huge star. And next to him, everyone thought I was his bodyguard. And then a few years later, I went to Macau about a year and a half ago to do a concert in Macau. And I walked onto the stage. This is now, House Cards have been playing for about a year and 2 years. I walked onto the stage, and it was as if some rock star had walked onto the stage. 300 Chinese raced the stage and spent the entire concert taking selfies with me in the background. And I got back to Hong Kong that night, and I asked a number of friends of mine, what the fuck has happened since I was last in China? He said, oh, House of Cards, so big in China. I said, well, I mean, I've heard and understand that the Chinese government rather enjoy it. And he said, yes, that is true. But he said also for the common man, Francis Underwood is perceived as someone fighting against corruption.
Always lost in translation
It
sometimes.
took me about a day and a half to get my head around that. But yes, the show, the character has become very popular.
I should note that in China it's available on a transactional and as-word VOD service, but it's wildly, wildly popular, like it is everywhere else in the world. We wanted to open it up and to you to ask some questions from Kevin. You just shout it out, and we've got some folks with microphones who will come up to you. Here, we got a hand right here.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm Jesus from Spain. I have to ask about season 5 because Bob Willimon has left the show as showrunner. I want to know if the show is going to have a different direction now that Bob is not there.
Well, Bo was very tired. He's been working non-stop since we began. He's a remarkable man. We've had an incredible experience, and without question, I'll miss him being there every day. But the writer's room is the same writers that we had in season 4. Nothing has changed in terms of the quality of the work that we're going to be doing. And we have now been working toward, Bo and I began these conversations, as we did every year, sort of about midway through the shooting of the previous season. So much has been discussed, much has already been put on the table, lots of very interesting ideas, and we're excited now that the writing process is happening, and we will begin season 5 soon enough.
It should be noted, Bo has a place in television history, and that's his first television show he's ever done, was House of Cards. It's pretty phenomenal. So, right over here.
Mattias Bergqvist from Sweden. Can you talk a little about working with Joel Kinnaman in season 4?
Working with who?
Joel Kinnaman.
I didn't understand.
Working in cinema?
Joel Kinnaman, the Swedish actor. In
The Swedish actor.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that.
Yes, sorry. I've had an incredible time. It's funny, he's challenging. We have very much enjoyed working with each other. He's also a stage actor, he does a lot of theater. And talent definitely runs in that family.
Mr. Spacey, given that we're in the run-up to the presidential election, do you mind sharing how do you think Mr. Underwood compares to the most interesting candidates?
Well, we just need to remember that he's a fictional character. And that some of the candidates running appear to be fictional characters. And it's just very interesting that the parallel universe that we always intended as we moved forward, knowing that there would be an election, so that there is a parallel election happening on the show. It's just been very interesting, I think, for audiences everywhere, but maybe particularly American audiences, to look at politics, look at how we expose things in our program, and that there are many times when we will finish a sequence, we'll have a storyline that we will be attacking, and I will leave the set and I will go to my hotel room and I will wonder, have we gone too far? Have we crossed the Rubicon? Is there something we've done that feels unreal and kind of unbelievable and kind of crazy? And then I turn on the television and I watch the news and I think we haven't gone far enough.
You're friendly with Bill Clinton. What does Bill think of Francis?
I love that house of cards.
Right, Danny?
I was just going to ask, what other politicians over here?
Over here.
Yeah, have you talked to other politicians about what they think of House of Cards?
Yes, I've been involved in the political world for a very long time, so I know that world, and I know a lot of politicians, Republicans and Democrats. And quite frankly, I hear both ends of the spectrum. I hear those that say it's very cynical, it's just dramatic, it's not real, it has nothing to do with the way things are. And then I speak to other politicians who say it's closer to the truth than anyone would like to know. So I've heard both sides of it. But no matter what, Democrats, Republicans in my country, people seem to really dig the show, whatever side of the political spectrum they come down on.
Hi.
Go next door.
Okay, so I guess we all agree that most of us do watch TV series on smartphones like that. And did you ever imagine that people are going to watch you on screens like that? And what's your opinion about it? Does it bother you?
I hope I fill your screen. That's all
We've got time for one last question. Go right here, structure. Oh, see up here? Here we go.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Giza Chakori. I'm from Hungary. And I was lucky enough to see you on stage in Oldvik playing Richard III. For me, that performance was back to basics. I'm a bit Shakespearean with acting. So I would like to ask you for a follow-up that you mentioned that you learned a lot as an actor by that production, what you used in this series. So can you tell us something about this a little bit deeper?
Yes, I can just tell you that when I made the decision in the year 2000 to move to London, to start a theater company, to do a play every year, or 2 plays every year for what became a 12-year time, that I was at a place where I wanted to challenge myself in a different way than I had been challenging myself in film. I didn't want to fall into making a lot of movies I probably shouldn't make, and that I wanted to become a better actor. And that I know now, as I sit here, that the 12 or so plays, or 13 plays I did in the period of time from 2003 until I left the Old Vic last August, changed me. To work with Trevor Nunn, to work with Matthew Warchus, to work with Sam Mendes, to work with Thea Sherrick, to work with the actors I worked with, the kind of parts I did, the fact that you get up every single night, and that you can get better, is like, for me, it's like tennis, you know, it's like you get up, 8 times a week and you play tennis. It's the same rules, but it's a different game. And for an actor like myself, who I learned so much from the doing, the act of being watched, the changes that you go through when you learn about a character and about yourself and about an audience every night. I know for myself that I would never have been prepared to take on the role of Frank Underwood 12 years ago. But all the work I've done since I went to the Old Vic, I believe, helped prepare me for being able to play a character on a very wide and large landscape. So there's a certain theatricality to the character, but also try to maintain a sense that he's a real person and be grounded, is for me all about the theater.
Well, thank you, Kevin, for being here, and on behalf of everyone at Netflix and for myself, it's been a really has been and continues to be a great honor to bring
Thank
you.
you. I'm looking forward to your new talk show on Netflix.
Yes. It's going to be very short-lived. Thank you again. We're going to turn it back to Jonathan.
Thank you, Lauren.